opportunity here. If you're into country music, I know some of you are, especially internships. This is CRS week. This is a big deal in country music, especially with radio. And so what we've got is the Black River Records or Black River Entertainment radio promotion staff. Rick Baumgartner, he's the gray-haired guy. He's the head honcho here. He's going to introduce his staff. I thought we'd go for about 30 minutes, and then we'll have time for questions and answers. And I do want to say also, Rick is a Belmont graduate. He was reminding me that there's not a single building on this campus that existed at the time he was here. So that's how long it's been. But he did play basketball for Belmont many years ago.
Still had peach baskets on both ends.
Told you.
See? Some guy named James Naismith wasn't there. Rush, thank you very much.
Yeah.
My name's Rick Baumgartner, and for the past 25 years, I've been in the country music business. Let me see a show of hands. How many of you are here for credit only?
Ah.
Cool. Thank you for being honest. You get extra points. This is a busy week for us in all of country radio. Starting tonight and running through Friday, there are probably going to be about 1,500 to 1,800 country radio programmers, consultants, sales managers, general managers in Nashville doing seminars, learning more about all the labels in town, hearing about new artists, getting a chance to meet with labels and try to find different ways to expose their radio stations with artists and vice versa. The ladies and gentlemen that you see beside me, our job is very simple. It's to get records played on the radio.
Very simple.
It's probably the easiest job you're ever going to have in country music. And as we get into this, they'll tell you a little bit more about what they do on a daily basis. A radio program director will get anywhere from 10 to 15 to 20 new singles every week for consideration on his playlist. Some of the country playlists around the country are as small as 20 records. Others are as large as 35 records. So every time they decide to add a record, they will go to this list of 15, 18, 20 records that come in every week and decide what they want to play. They may add one, they may add two, and if it's a great week, they may add three. Those 15, 18 records that don't make it this week stay on the desk, and when those next 15, 18 records come in, that list now is 38, 40. This continues on until records either die or the program director decides he doesn't want to deal with it anymore. Each of these promotion people have a region that they call on. Megan does the Southeast, Joe does the Midwest, Bill does the West Coast, and Brian does the Northeast. Each of them have anywhere from 30 to 35 to 40 radio stations that they are responsible for each and every week. It is their job to contact that program director and music director and share all the information about our records with them and try to do everything that they can within the reasons and legalities of our law to be able to get them to play our records. It's a pretty stinking hard job because there's probably another 35 or 40 guys behind them trying to make their call every week. I've been doing it 25 years, and I'm not sure there's another job that I really would love to have. My background, I started at Belmont in 1975. I was fortunate enough to play basketball here. I was standing out front looking at the campus, and honestly, one building is available to be seen from when I was here, and that's Wright Hall. My wife and I dated there, as a matter of fact. I was fortunate enough to live in Pembroke when I was here, and there you go. Room 222, as a matter of fact. That was before they had air conditioning and things like that. But we had a great time. Was here from 75 to 79. Worked with Don Purdy and Bill Bandy. Had a chance to work as sports information director in 1981, 1982 when I was here doing some final classes toward my degree. After that, I got into radio and television here in Nashville. Did sports talk radio at WLAC and WSIX. Did Nashville Sounds games from 1982 to 1988. And then got in the record business, working for Warner Brothers in 1988. And after that, went to work for Warner Brothers, Atlantic, Decca, Broken Bow, and now with Black River Entertainment. This is the part that I hate. I've been privileged to work 41 number one records and been involved in sales of records of over 75 million units. I've been privileged to work with artists like Faith Hill, Randy Travis, Travis Tritt, Little Texas, Bill Engvall, Jeff Foxworthy, Clint Black, Craig Morgan, just a good number of artists throughout my career. It is a wonderful industry, and we've been very blessed at Black River to put this staff together. I'm going to introduce them to you and let them talk a little bit about what they do on a daily basis, how we do what we do, some of the things that we have to deal with, and then hopefully open it up to questions for you guys as well. I'm going to start over on the far right at the newest member of our promotion staff. No, I'm not. I'm actually going to start on my left with the with the what we call whom we refer to in our building as the promo whisperer. Those of you in the back row, if you cannot hear him, please raise your hand so we can so you can hear what he has to say. He is Brian Rhoades. He works for the Northeast region of Black River Entertainment. Brian, it's all your turn.
I'm originally from Indiana. I went to Indiana University. I started doing this before there were CDs and before there were cell phones, and which the job has dramatically changed. I graduated in '86, moved to Atlanta, started working in the music business as an intern, and I did production at night so I could pay my rent and have beer money. And so eventually what happened was I became an assistant position, which Rachael will tell you, doing pretty much what she's doing now. And from there I became a regional promotions director, and at that time it was for Virgin Records, which was the largest independently owned record company in the world. Richard Branson still owned it. So we got to do a lot of things differently like we do now with Black River, because Black River is an independent company. From there, I went over to Sony Music and worked for Columbia. And then from there, I moved to New York, and I ran the New York office for Carroll Records. Oversaw all the promotion, other than urban and country. I did all the formats. From there, I went back to Sony and ran the promotion department at Epic Records. And then from there, I went back over to Warner Brothers and Reprise. And then from there, I left and I started my own company. And it was a management publishing company. We did 360 deals in a record label. Eventually, I sold off all the bands. And I went back to work for EMI here in Nashville for about a year and a half, and I left, and I came over to Black River.
So basically, he can't keep a job.
Pretty much.
Everybody write all that down, anybody?
So I've been doing country about 2 years, but most of my background is in the mainstream. So I've worked for a lot of artists from, Foo Fighters to Paul McCartney to Tina Turner to Paul Abdul and Janet Jackson. I could go on. I don't want to bore you with it, but so what's that? And Garth. But so what I do on a daily basis, I manage the Northeast, and basically everything that goes in my region goes all the way from New Hampshire all the way down to Virginia, and then I come over all the way to Ohio. Joe's got the Midwest. It's also a very relationship-based business. So Joe and I share a few markets together because we have long-standing relationships. So we kind of bleed over on each other's territory a little bit. So you have to be very comfortable with that person because it's really trench warfare, and you both better be on the same page of what you're doing. So anything that happens in that area, it all goes through me. It comes to me first, and then I filter everything to Rick or the rest of my teammates if they need to know something, because inevitably things are connected. And I got to get the records put on the radio. I got to call these guys every day and find out where they are with their music. The toughest part is just to get them to listen to music. That's probably the hardest thing to do. And you got to just hound on them. And a lot of times it takes you weeks for them just to listen to a song. That's where the advantage is. The more you're on the road, the better off you are, because you actually can sit in front of their desk and play them the music, get their actual response, and listen to all their excuses, because they're always going to have excuses why they can't. So to me, when I hear no, that sounds like maybe. And because you're told no more than you're told yes. And you're competing, like Rick said, I'm competing against 30 other people or more each week. And everyone's got an upper hand. I don't have superstars in country. I don't have, the Lady Antebellums and the Eric Churches and the Jason Aldeans. And our primary artist right now is Craig Morgan. So I have to have good relationships, proper knowledge of the marketplace, and I have to kind of chart my course differently along with the rest of us. I guess that's pretty much it, really. To talk all day about that, Joe did that.
Well, in just a second, we're going to give each of them a specific topic of what they do in order to generate that airplay. The next guy to my right here, I know that you thought it was Joe Pesci when he walked in. Because he does. He has these mannerisms like Joe Pesci. And the more you watch him, he's gonna do it, I promise. But Joe Carroll lives in Cleveland, Ohio. He gets credit for that just for the fact that it snows every other day there. But he is a long-standing promotion man and probably one of the grittiest and dirtiest guys out there. So, ladies and gentlemen, Joe Carroll.
Good evening. I don't know why you put me down like that, Joe. Do I look like Joe Pesci? Come on.
Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on.
Oh, man. Anyways, I was born and raised in Dublin, Ireland, and came to America when I was 9. I graduated from Kent State University. I got a business degree there. And I fell into this business by mistake. I was trying to get into the airline business in public relations. And a good friend of mine was a program director. I was in his office one day for lunch, and he got a phone call, and I was in the record business. And I've been in promotion 33 years now. This is my 34th year. I started with a small label out of Macon, Georgia called Capricorn Records. Had the Allman Brothers, Wet Willie. I don't know if you know any of these artists. They're older. From there I went to Elektra and started working with the Eagles, Linda Ronstadt, a bunch of artists on there. I can't even think of some of their names anymore. From there over to CBS Records, which was then purchased by Sony Music, and worked with a bunch of artists and promoted a ton of artists, over $600 million in sales. I can't even remember the amount of number ones. I don't know how Rick did, but a lot. Michael Jackson, Ozzy Osbourne, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Pearl Jam, Incubus, Meatloaf, Boston, REO Speedwagon.
Sure, I'm glad I can't remember any of them.
Now those are off the top of my head. There's more, but anyways, I worked with Sony for 27 years at Epic Records, which was one of the labels under the umbrella. As Brian said, he worked for Columbia, which was the other label, and CBS at the time was the monster label. And after 27 years, they merged back in '05 with BMG. Got a little bit too corporate, too many bosses, too many lines of communication. So I took early retirement, and I got a call from Rick and said they were starting up a label in Nashville, which was Equity Music. And I think our first project was a little Big Town, if I recall. And it took us 11 months to break them. But pretty much as Brian was saying, our job on a daily basis, we get up, first thing we do is we turn the computer on. We look at what's happening number-wise with our artists, who's spinning it, who's not spinning it. We try to find the problems. We start on the phones. As soon as the banks open up, we start calling program directors and trying to find out why the record's not spinning when it should be spinning. And we just try to find ways, not only trying to get a hold of them on the phone or get a response back on an email, or going in to see them and try to get them to go to lunch and have some dialogue with them about the artist that we're promoting. But we'll just try to find ways to get them to like what we're bringing to them, showing them the passion of what we have and the music that we have, and trying to be honest and building great relationships with them. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, we have a bunch of old guys.
Pretty short. That's pretty good.
That was pretty good.
Go to the young one. Go to the young ones.
Now we're actually going to go to the newest members of the staff. Over on the far right, we love this lady like you would not believe. She is the glue that holds all of us together. And despite what you may hear, the most important person in a promotion department is the lady that sits on the end. She is the promotion coordinator. She is the one that makes sure that we have all the tools that we need, everything that keeps us going on a daily basis. She also wears 2 hats within our organization. Not only is she the promotion coordinator, she is the official Black River hockey liaison for us, because she played college hockey and keeps us up to date on the Buffalo Sabres and Nashville Predators. She makes sure that that's. And Rachel, tell us what you do. This is Rachel. She's
Hello,
like
everybody.
Garth, Reba, Cher. She has one name.
One name.
Rachel.
Total diva. Pretty much the only part of my day that stays the same is the beginning. I get up in the morning and get to work, an hour before all of these lazy folks. And I do my spin updates, which is giving these guys what Joe was talking about, their numbers, how many spins we're at for the week, what our chart number is like for that week to date, and then it all changes. I don't know what I'm doing from day to day. I mail stuff. I organize data and present it to the promo team. I keep everybody else in the company updated about what these guys are doing. So it really varies from day to day, and there is no really isn't an answer in my book. If you need something done, yeah, I can do it. When do you need it done by? That's pretty much it. I mean, there's so much stuff I do different every day.
I got to see you put up with Brian.
Oh, I do. And whoever said that he's the promo whisperer, I've never called him that. I would only call him Princess. That's it. And he will. If any of you call him Princess right now, he'll respond. Guaranteed.
Thank you.
And I do have to put up with them.
He does. Gentleman to my left is for those of you that are sitting up close. He just he broke his hand playing football a few weeks ago and just got the pins out. And so he looks a whole lot better than he did last time I saw him. He's based in Las Vegas and handles the West Coast for us. His name is Bill Lubitz. Bill?
Thank you. I don't have any kind of extensive, I'm not going to go through a laundry list of places that I've worked because I don't have it yet.
Vegas,
Yeah.
Cleveland, I mean.
Like Rick said, I live in Las Vegas. I went to UNLV. I got my degree in economics. You might say, what the heck is a guy with a degree in economics doing in the music business? Good question. Still trying to figure that out myself. To be honest with you, these guys have sat and talked about, it was a relationship-based thing for me. From school, I got into radio. I started in radio sales, which was quite interesting. They handed me a phone book. Here you go. Have fun. I did that for 2.5, 3 years, but music was always a passion for me, so I decided that I wanted to kind of maybe get into the programming side. So I became a promotions director for a radio station there in Las Vegas. I did that for almost 9 years. The last couple, I was also the music director. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think I'm the only one of us that's, had people like we are right now calling me. So I was on the other end for 2 years. I had I had 40-some people a week calling me and pitching me on the records and trying to get me to put the record on the radio station. So I bring a little bit of a different perspective. I've had people work for me. I've had people, do their best to get me to put a record on. After that, I kind of decided, this looks interesting to me. So I decided, let's do the promo game. I started at the time what was a new imprint of Broken Bow Records at Stony Creek Records. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with Thompson Square. I worked them for a little bit. We had a couple other artists, nobody probably that you would recognize. I worked there for a little over a year, moved on to Quarterback Records, and then came here. I've been at Black River now since June. These guys have kind of covered some of the things. One of the different things, and Joe didn't, I'll touch on it a little bit, for me is, these folks, besides Joe, they all go into the office every day. Well, for me, if I'm home, if I'm not on the road, if I'm not traveling to see my radio stations, by the way, I go from the Pacific Ocean as far east as Denver. That's kind of my region. But, if I'm home and I'm not out on the road for a certain week, my office is my house. It's a room in my house. That's my office. That's where I make my calls. That's where I send my emails and do those kind of things. And I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you, when I first started in this, after working in an office for 10 years, it was a bit of a struggle for me. Not going to an office every day, having an understanding of, okay, here I go, here's my desk, here's my office, this is where I start. For me, for us, we all the same, but I get up, have my coffee, I go sit at my desk, and these guys count on me. Rick counts on me. The rest of the team counts on me. That Bill's sitting there at his desk and he's doing his job. Bill's not watching TV. Bill's not out playing with his dogs. So to me, that's my responsibility to these guys. I mean, we sit up here. We all kind of do the same thing. We all try to build these relationships with these radio stations to be able to have access to their playlist. Somebody once told me that access equals influence, and I think that's very important. Because if I can't get that radio programmer on the phone, I don't have the opportunity to pitch my product to him. I don't have the opportunity to sell my record to him, to sell my artist to him. So for me, I take that. Is it raining? Is that the air conditioner? What is that?
That's the air conditioner. Sorry.
I'm not used to rain. I live in Las Vegas. It doesn't rain. So that's a kind of a little different aspect for me on an individual basis. If on a day-to-day basis, when I'm at my desk, I'm responsible to myself. I'm responsible to the rest of my team to ensure that I'm doing my job. That each and every day I'm making my calls. I'm getting in touch with my programmers. I'm doing my best for my artists to get their product put on the air. And once it gets put on the air, move it to a different level. It's all about spins for us. Once we get it on the air, we try to get more spins.
That's
we
when
try
our
to,
job starts, actually.
Yeah. We try to get some more influence with the radio station. So eventually, everybody that's out there listening to country radio, we hope at one point in time, here's our song. And we hope that once you hear that song, that you like that song. And then once you like that song, we hope that you open up your computer and you click on, buy it now here on iTunes, or you go to the store and you pick up the product. But that's kind of the link for us, and I'll leave it at that. And,
Does she need to
You ready?
stand?
You ready?
Always ready.
Okay. As always, every staff has to have one, and we have ours. Nope, I'm not talking about the fact that she's female. I'm talking about the fact that she's very athletic and she kicks all of our butts in every competition we ever do. So, she is the newest member of our staff. She is the newest member to the radio business from a record side, and we are pleased and honored to have her with us. And her name is Megan Good, and she works the Southeast for Black River. And I guarantee you, she'll challenge any of the guys, girls to any kind of athletic endeavor, and she'll pretty well win. So, Megan.
Okay, hold on. Megan housed Rick one time in
I
Pop
know,
Shot, and
I
I
know.
think that's where this is stemming from. Just
But I
once.
was not the only one.
No, but you
I
were
was
the
not
worst.
the only
Yeah,
one. Okay.
she beat me too.
I know.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the broken hand at the time, so can't use that.
But Rick played basketball.
Yeah, and I actually, I was actually fairly good at one time. So
So
at one time.
my story's a little bit different. I, like Bill, started in radio. I'm a mass comm. I had a mass comm degree from Cal State out in Southern California. I spent 5 years at Cape Frog Radio in Riverside as the promotions director there. So I didn't deal with the music like Bill did. I dealt with everything else, or dealt with everything else. I ended up in Nashville after getting an offer to be an assistant for Taylor Swift. So I came here, and that's how I ended up in Nashville, and I did that for about a year. And after doing that, I took over as promotions director here at KDF in Nashville for 3 years, and then WSM in Nashville, and then was offered the job here at Black River. So I've only been doing radio promotions from a record label standpoint since June. So for me, not only getting our songs played on the radio and getting the spins, that's not only my job. Right now I'm still building the relationships, and I know everybody has said relationships, but for me it's truly getting out there and meeting these people. So I think right now I have 42 stations is what I have. And I've gotten out and I've met every single one of them, and now I'm going out and seeing every single one of them again. And once I see every single one of them again, I'll go out and see every single one of them again. So for me, and even talking to other people that do my job in my area, they've all said, it's 8 months, 9 months, 12 months before you really get comfortable in what you're doing, before you really get comfortable in your relationships. So for me, not only getting my record played is my job, but my job is also building these relationships right now. So a week like CRS, when all of these programmers are in town, is a week that I really need to take advantage of, and spending time with these people and building not only business relationships, but personal relationships with these people.
One of the other things that's so time consuming within our business is not only do we have the responsibility of generating and securing radio airplay for our artists. Basically, from a radio standpoint, each of these artists' careers are in the hands of these folks here. So when you sign with with a label, whether it be Blake Shelton at Warner Brothers or Tim McGraw at Curb, the promotion staff pretty much is responsible for whether or not that artist has success or not at radio. About 90% of all new music, at least on the countryside, is obtained through country radio. So if you don't have a hit at country radio, there's a really good chance that your artist and your song isn't going to be heard. So it is important, at least on the countryside, that you get your record on country radio. In addition to doing what we're doing now with Craig Morgan, and Craig is currently at 21 on the media-based chart this week, and it's as a result of the hard work that these guys have done. We are now in the process of setting up a new record from an artist named Glenn Templeton. Glenn is from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and was on tour as Conway Twitty in a touring musical. So now we have new music from him, and while we're working the Craig record and continuing to get spins on that, it's our job to introduce Glenn to this 135 radio station panel that determines the Billboard and media-based chart methodology that we all live and die by. So in the meantime, while they're talking about Craig Morgan, they're also playing the new music from Glenn Templeton to get their opinion about that. So if they're not playing Craig yet, we're also working them on Craig, plus we're working them on Glenn Templeton. On Monday, Megan will board a bus with a band we have called Due West, and they will actually begin their radio tour. And what will happen during that is that Megan and the guys and I will be on the bus going and visiting radio stations throughout Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, and Mississippi, visiting with radio stations and presenting them for the first time through video, audio, and from live performances on the bus to the program directors and music directors from all these radio stations. Oh, and by the way, she's still working the Craig Morgan and she's setting up the Glenn Templeton at the same time. When she gets finished, she'll hand the bus off to Bill, and he'll go for 2 weeks doing the same thing, while she then hits back on the road. I left on Monday of last week. I got home on Wednesday night. Left on Thursday. Got home on Friday night. I came here today, and I'm leaving tomorrow, and I'll be gone for the remainder of the week. Joe and I catch a plane to Oklahoma City on Saturday morning, Dallas on Sunday. I meet her in Birmingham on Monday, and then we proceed to do our trip. We fly from Shreveport to Charlotte, North Carolina on Friday night. We'll be there on Saturday, Knoxville on Sunday, and then we'll be back home in the office at 8 o'clock on Monday morning, March the 5th. That's just my schedule. Each of these guys are going to be doing their schedule in different areas of the country during the same thing. My wife and I have been married 34 years because I spend so much time on the road. Don't let anybody fool you. That's the history. That is the secret to our longevity. One of the things that I'm going to ask each of them briefly, and we've got a couple more minutes before we answer questions. Our job is almost like a stockbroker. Rachael mentioned it a moment ago as well. We get up every morning and we start looking at numbers. We have a program that is media-based real time. And every time a record is played somewhere in America on that chart, it reflects almost immediately the chart movement. And we will go from 21 to 20 to 20 to 19 to 19 to 18 to 24 at times as a result of how this real-time thing happens. Rush and I had the chance a few months ago to drive down to Oxford to see my Georgia Bulldogs kick the snot out of his Ole Miss Rebels. And unfortunately, I didn't get to enjoy the trip as much as I wanted to because we were in a dogfight battle that week on the Craig Morgan record. And I spent the back seat of the car on my computer checking numbers throughout the whole week. So it is a 24/7 job. I'm going to let Bill talk a little bit about something that has begun to really change how we do business, and it's called research and M-scores. Bill, coming from programming, can share a little bit better, but it again tells you how specific and how tedious getting a record played on the radio can be. Bill, M-scores.
M-scores, okay. Well, to understand M-scores, you have to understand what is now in, I don't know how many exact markets it is across, but larger markets across the country. Before, when you would tell somebody what radio station to listen to, Arbitron, which is a company that does the ratings, would send out a diary. It's literally what they called it, and you'd write down, hey, I listened to WSIX for this long. Well, now what they have, it's called a personal people meter. It's a thing that's about the size of a beeper. You wear it on your belt or put it in your purse or whatever it may be, and that thing detects music, it detects songs, it detects the radio station that you're listening to. So in real time, it goes back to Arbitron, and they have a sense of what radio stations are listened to on a real-time basis. From that, for us, there is another piece of software that's called M-scores. M-Score will take an individual song, like for our song in particular, Craig Morgan, This Old Boy. Each time that personal people meter picks up that song is playing, now what they will also, the M-Score registers is, do people keep that station on? Do people turn away? It's switching is basically. I'm sure a lot of you will get in your cars or go somewhere, you'll hear a song you don't like, what do? Turn it off, you switch to another station to find something else, right? I'm sure you switch around all over the place. So this is something that's registered now. It's a percentage basis. I won't get into the meat, but basically it's a mathematical formula that measures switching of a song. So essentially, you want to be on the positive side. You want your song to register a positive score, which means that the people listening to that radio station, that at least all the people that might have happened to have a meter that listened to that song, stayed on that radio station. If you have a negative number, what that means is, well, everybody that listened to this song turned away. They moved to a different station. They switched some way, shape, or form. Maybe they got out of their car, whatever it may be. That stuff factors in as well. But that affects us on a research basis. These individual programmers will now look at this research, and they'll say, okay, if I've got a certain number of songs that I'm looking at, maybe I'm not playing this particular song, and I want to look at the research across the nation. How is this record doing in M-scores? Are people continuing to tune in? Because ultimately, these programmers' livelihoods are based on the ratings. They continue in their job, they get bonuses in their job, they get fired from their job based on the ratings of their radio station. So ultimately what they're trying to look for is songs that are going to keep people like us listening to their radio station for a longer amount of time. So they'll take an individual selection of songs, and some people look at it different ways. Some people, really pay attention to it. Some people not as much. It's a developing kind of technology as well. But, they'll also use that as a decision, should I play this record more? Maybe I'm only playing it 8 or 9 times a week, but I got a really positive M-score out of it. So now I'll move it up. Now I'm going to play it 15, 17 times a week based on that. Maybe I'll move it back based on the negative scores that happen. So this is all real-time software that these folks are looking at. They get the M-score report they get on a weekly basis that they use to make decisions to put songs on their radio station, to move songs up what they call their rotation list, and that all kind of affects us, and it's tools that we have to use and we utilize to help get our record played, help it get played more, or we have an understanding of maybe there's a problem here at each individual station.
It's kind of similar to what Nielsen does with television. People have the boxes in their homes, and the same way they rate TV shows. If they get great ratings, that show will continue to go on for years and years. If not, they cancel those shows. It's a similar concept to that. But this business, because of things like that, is very volatile. We could be here today and gone tomorrow. Same in radio. All based on stuff like this.
One quick thing before I turn it back over to Rush. There are 2 charts that we follow religiously, and that our ability to maintain our jobs each week is judged by. It's Billboard and Mediabase. They're very similar in stations that are reporting to each, but they're different in their methodology. Billboard is based on audience numbers. Mediabase is based on points, which is a size of market, time spent listening, audience share, and they come up with a weighting that particular radio station is worth. So every time we get a spin in Chicago, we get 10 points. Every time we get a spin in Spokane, we get 2.1 points. So obviously 3 spins in Spokane, equals a spin in Chicago. So obviously you're looking for trying to increase your spins in larger markets. At the end of the week, all of these spins are tabulated and the points are totaled, and the top 50 records are your chart. So if you're the number 1 record this week, it is based on the fact that you had the most points, the most, maybe not necessarily the most spins, but the most points in that chart this week. And guys like us have done our job in moving that record up. In Billboard, it is all done by audience. So if you get a spin in a morning drive, that audience number is obviously bigger than an overnight spin from midnight to 6 when very few people are listening. So obviously we are trying to get our people to not play it in overnights, but to play it in a day part where we get the audience numbers and we move those numbers. We were up over 1 million in new audience detections last week on Craig Morgan alone, and we're kind of in the middle of the pack. Some number one records are in the 12, 14, 15 million audience range per week when you look at number one records. So two different methodologies, and we have to be able to use those math skills that we learned in first, second, third grade in order to make sure that we know kind of what we're doing. Rush, I know we've taken a little more than that. So, yeah.
I know you just heard a lot about research and stats and numbers and charts, and that's really the nuts and bolts of the stuff, but the business is a lot of fun, and that's why we do it. And it's more of a lifestyle than anything. And none of us would be here doing it if we didn't love it. And we really have unusual jobs, and probably the greatest reward is when you take an artist from the beginning and they're not known, and you help build the brand, and you get the songs put in the charts and become hits. You're emotionally, bonded to that, and you have a great relationship with the artist because you've been there from day one. And that's probably the most rewarding thing, is when you actually do break an artist, because it's very difficult, and 9 times out of 10, or probably higher than that, you're not going to do it. So, but we get to go on tours, we get to do a lot of fun things, and that's the payoff for all the long hours and all the tediousness that we have to put up with. So it's just, we do it because it's a lot of fun. So I think we're sitting in the lab. But
Yeah, no. I'll open up to questions. Let me just ask the first one. Is XM Sirius a digital radio? How does that impact terrestrial radio? Kind of next couple of years, real quickly, what's going to happen? Or is it still the same system it's been for the last so many years?
yeah, pretty much. I think
Since you know John.
But I think individually, there's different ways and different avenues for you to be exposed to music, but I can speak probably only more for country radio in particular. I think country radio itself is still the main conduit for us to get our product out there. Yeah, there may be some different avenues, XM Sirius. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you guys, might get music, or you listen to music on Pandora or Spotify or wherever it may be. But ultimately, research has found, specifically for our format, that country radio is still the main driver and the main place where people discover new music.
So, questions out there?
I was wondering, for those of you that have been that have worked with the bigger labels with more promotions, do you see any benefits or differences in your relationships with the PDs? Working for a smaller label?
Well, I mean, if you're somebody like Megan over here who's just starting out, it's definitely a lot easier to have the doors open to build the relationships. When you work at a smaller independent company, again, if you're over at EMI right now and you work for Capitol Records, guess what your roster is? Keith Urban, Lady Antebellum, Eric Church, Little Big Town, Darius Rucker. Every freaking record they got's a hit. So, and then they're jamming, they're developing stuff. So it's definitely, that's where they have a competitive advantage over you. So starting out, it's easier, as a new promotion person. But
the one thing I will say, we don't have the hierarchy that we have to deal with for decision making. If we're sitting around at lunch and somebody says this is a great idea, and we all think it's a great idea, we have the ability to move on it. At a Warner Brothers or Universal or something like that, there is a little more of a hierarchy that you have to deal with. So
bureaucracy.
There are some trade-offs there. So
No, it's just Brandon. If you have something for them, the door's wide open. If you're a small label like us, you got to fight to get that door open, to get in there, to meet them, and let them see what you're like and see if your personality's like, and build that relationship. It's always a struggle. But with the big labels, it's not.
What would you all say as breaking artists? How would you define that?
breaking
artists
artists,
to
me,
sales or based on
to me is break. Well, I don't even know if I call it. I'd say establishing a brand. It's changed. It used to be breaking artists, but it's really establishing
It's
a
just a
brand.
figure of speech.
So yeah, it's just a figure of speech. So establishing that example is Zach Brown's perfect example. He was told by country radio, "You're not country enough," and then he was told by the pop, "You're country." So he really had no home. He had a touring base in the Southeast, and the booking agent came in and said, hey, look, I think you're a star. Let me help you build up your touring base, and grow it from there. And so once they started doing that, people really started taking notice, and then he got a country deal,
It used to be based where you would look at, you know, somebody being broken at, you know, at gold or platinum.
Yeah, yes.
But now it's more about, you know, just name recognition and some other things
You
like
sell
that.
merch.
And how, you know, how the overall brand is, whether again your website and different things like that.
Dave Matthews is another good example. He never had radio hits, but he sold out arenas and tons of merch and everything else. And finally, he had a few radio hits, but he was already established brand before he even had a hit on radio.
There's different ways. I mean, Little Big Town. When we started, it took 11 months for one song. 11 months just to get that, and it didn't even go, I don't even think it went top 10. I think it reached number 12 on the chart and went start to go back. But 11 months just to get it to number 12. But over that time, you're like putting a puzzle together. You're building it. And then the second single came, and that went to number 8. And after that single hit, the sales jumped. And they hit 500,000, which is a gold album. And when you really hit gold, like Rick said, that's the beginning of, you know, quote unquote, you broke. You know, the artist. Everything then beyond that is much easier.
Because
when
then you had
start
television, then you had other things that are going
for that artist. Because people start, and then they grow too. And, but that's how it starts.
Basically, you probably get a lot of different answers from a lot of different people as to how to kind of quantify that. You know, I mean, I could sit and you could bring in 5 different radio programmers too and ask them, and I bet you all 5 would have a different answer. It's
I mean,
But you
when
can
I-
sell. You can sell an average. An artist can sell. There's plenty of them out there. Sell 150,000 albums every time they release it. But they do tours, and their tours are always sold out. They have no radio hits, and that's breaking an artist. You know, so it's just. Bill's right. It can be looked at a bunch of different ways. So.
But the other part of it as well is, if you're looking at it from a business standpoint, you know, if you sell that 150,000 units and you don't spend a whole lot of money in order to achieve that unit, and you're making a huge profit, then obviously from a record company standpoint, you have broken that artist because you found a formula that works in that environment where you may spend 50,000, 75,000 to break that artist, but yet you're selling 150, 200,000 units on the backside, so your return on that investment is much greater than even in some cases where you may spend, you know, $5 million on an artist and sell $1 million and basically break even. So.
And a good example of that is Celine Dion, who I worked with. Couldn't speak English. No, I'm going to say she couldn't speak English. And we're trying to get her on the radio. They didn't want to hear about it, right? So what did they do? They came in the back door and broke it through sales by taking her the stuff and working through in-stores with her. And, you know, they had a person teaching her English, but look where she's at today. And radio didn't really break that. Retail started that.
she's my neighbor.
So. She is, I know. Has her own helicopter, too.
Another question? Yeah.
Are there certain techniques that work better to get more spins?
Cash.
Or cash?
That's illegal.
It's
All right,
illegal.
turn the camera.
It works.
Rick, turn the camera off.
I said it's illegal. My attorney, Rush Hicks, have you met him?
Honestly, for me, I mean, it's a relationship-based thing, as we keep saying.
It's a case by case.
Yeah, it's, you know, my group of stations, I've kind of got to know, you know, what works for each individual station. What works for each individual programmer? How can I approach him in a certain way? And a lot of that's through, you know, like Megan was talking about, you go and visit and you spend some time with them, and you talk to other people in the business. I mean, I talk to a lot of other people that don't work for our company, but they work the West Coast as well, and you know that maybe have a better relationship with this radio programmer. Okay, how'd you get that done? You know, we'll share trade secrets. You know, there's all kinds of different ways to skin the cat. It's just figuring out how to go about it. I don't know. There's not a tried and true method, I guess. I mean, it's really.
I think a good thing too is to kind of we have a lot of tools for us, but if you know their playlist better than they know it, if you're constantly watching it and you know when some of the other songs are starting to go away on their playlist, you know when your in is, you know they're down 6 spins on this record. That's your spot when they're down 6 spins on their record, on another record.
It's building respect.
Yes, sir.
I'm a little bit confused with your business model. Are you an independent promotion company
No.
that contracts with artists, or
No.
are you the promotion
We're the promotion department for Black River
for
Entertainment.
Black?
We own a publishing company, several studios, and a record company.
Okay.
So we're
Yeah,
a full
that-
entertainment company.
That's actually a great question. There are some companies in town, 9 North, CO5, and they are promotion companies for hire. And what that means is that they create a promotion company like what you see here, and then they will contract with each individual artist to work that record. They don't have an affiliation with a specific label, they have an affiliation with an artist. There are a couple of those that have been very successful, but we are not. We're very similar to a Broken Bow or Curb or Big Machine. So.
One more question.
Do you receive your playlists through the internet from stations, from radio stations?
Well, you see it online through the BDS and the media base. We look every day. You can pull up their playlists, and you can pull up their history with an artist. You can pull up every piece of data imaginable, and you can slice and dice it however you want. So yeah, I mean, because sometimes if you're going, I always do. Sometimes when I travel with Rick, I just print out the playlist or whatever I need to really look at. And I take a copy, and I just on the plane we go back through it and just so there's something we're missing or whatever. So, and you can look at. We're saying you can look exactly when they played a song, is it 12 a.m. or is it 6 p.m. And so, it's all transparent.
We actually had a good conversation right before we came over here. We're in a battle with another record, and we were trying to figure out what had happened today on that record to give them a pretty good bump. And we found that in Houston alone, of the 112 points that they were up, 94 of those came from one radio station because they played that song 16 times in the first 2 days of the week. And if this continues, obviously, then we're gonna run into a problem with that all day long. But we can't again, if we're not being played in that market, we don't have much of a chance to stay even unless we convince them to play our records.
All right, two more. So,
Do you think that the development of those PBMs and the in-store is making radio more competitive?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
I don't think anybody knows.
I don't think it does.
Yeah, it's still kind of a.
Future it will be maybe because it seems like it would be because there's more information out there.
It's how the information is used. To be honest with you,
It maybe gives a truer sense. I would think people in Arbitron will tell you that it gives more of a real sense of how people's listening patterns are. Because you think about it, if you're doing the diary method and someone asks you to recall, what did I listen to? Each Sunday I have to fill it out. Well, yeah, I might not really know on Thursday what I did or what happened, so I'm just going to fill out that for 5 hours I listened to this station. But that little meter, whatever you may be doing, it picks up on it. If I walk into a store and they just happen to be playing, whatever it is, it's exposure for me. It's real exposure, so it registers that. So, does it make it more competitive? Maybe a little bit, because it gives a truer sense of how people's patterns are. I mean, we all are exposed to different ways to music, and we change channels probably quite a bit more than if we had to recall it, then we'd be able to.
It's probably more for us than it is for them because they're going to be harder on records now than they would have been in the past because they have an immediate feedback on what was actually going on at the time. But you also have to realize that even in the old diary method, there are probably in Nashville alone when they judge the ratings, there's probably about 100 diaries in town. So when you're talking about who determines the number one station, it may be 25 or 30 people making the decision as to who it is. So it's still so minute on that deal.
okay, last question.
How exactly do Music Row reporting stations work? Do they have anything to do with media-based billboard?
No. Why don't you repeat that question?
There is a chart methodology in town called Music Row, and Music Row is a publication in town, just like Billboard Magazine and Country Air Check. And they have a group of stations that do not qualify for either of the other charts. Billboard, and I'll try to make it quick, Rush. Billboard and Media Base are monitored, and they have a monitor in each of these top 100 markets, so that every time a song is played, it immediately registers. There's a group called Indicator and Activator stations in the next tier of stations that will actually report their plays every week to these two trades, and will tell you, I played Craig Morgan's This Old Boy 45 times this week. The next tier down, I guess from a baseball standpoint, you'd have the majors, the AAA, and then you'd have the AA, which philosophically could be your Music Row stations. They report their ads and conversions and spins to Music Row, to the publication, and then they create a chart as that as well. It's a good starter. It's a good place to start working records. A lot of promotion people start working Music Row stations and then graduate up to the Indicator Activators, and then
They're mostly based on market size, population.
Y'all don't work in them for that?
We don't.
All right,
We
thank you guys.
independently-